Oh. So this past year, 2021, 2022, I've been a resident director at Trinity Western University, which is a school that I went to get my undergrad, my business degree. And to be honest, I never thought that I would come back, but I did. And I think that's in like obedience to like God's will, because it was not in my cards, but opportunities opened and I said okay. And it's been kind of hectic, kind of crazy, and I feel like I've learned a lot, and I've also feel like I've been able to share with what wisdom that I do have with the community and with my students. And yeah, so I'm just gonna do a little recap of things that I've cherished, that I've learned from, and yeah, things to remember my year by. So one of the reasons why I came back to Trinity is I remember being a student here, and as an Indigenous person, I just felt very alone. Like, I think in the past, the way history has it, you could either be Native or you could be Christian. Like, you can't be both, and a lot of things that people don't understand we write off. And so like anything that was cultural, Christians sometimes are like, oh, is that what God really wanted? And like that's been like a hard thing to wrestle with other people, because I think in my own heart God did create culture, and so God created like the stories and the dancing and the language of like different cultures. And that being said, I always felt like I had to choose Christianity or like my culture background, and that's why I came back, because I wanted to affirm students who feel like they have to choose Christianity or their identity, whether that's like LGBTQ or just like different things, you know? Like, you can be whoever you want to be because God created you. I don't know. So I wanted to come back for the one student who maybe might feel like, am I Christian? And I wanted to be like, yeah, you are. If you know Jesus and he died on the cross and you accept that, then that's Christianity. And like everybody has a different pace with that. That's vitamin D, you know? Yum. You gotta enjoy the little moments, you know? The sun on your face, the breeze on your feet, all of it. Okay. Well, what are some great memories this year? Working at Trinity, I think, actually a big memory or a big thing that I'm grateful for is September 30th. When I was a student, I would like wear an orange shirt because I knew what that shit meant, you know, being Indigenous and all. But because of like the past years, like kind of discovery of all the graves, like my school actually did something big, and that was like having a whole day off, and like they canceled classes and they had elders come in, and like they had like events throughout the day. And part of me is like a little upset that like a lot of students didn't show up, just because like they don't really care. Like, why would they want to if it doesn't like really affect them? But I felt refreshed that like as a Native person there was something being done. So kudos to the school. We're all growing. But that was a really big memory, and it was also very emotional and hard because, you know, especially when you're like alone dealing with something heavy like that, it feels like really exhausting. So I think, yeah, I'm very grateful for it, and it was hard and it was beautiful, and I just hope that we can all remember. Yeah, so that's a memory. I'm just gonna be speaking into the sun because I cannot see a thing. Another memory I had, spicy. So like when I was a student here, like it being like a Christian school, you know, we don't like to talk about SCX very much, and definitely not like in girl circles. I remember there would be like events for men about pornography and masturbation and all that, and I just felt like when I left Trinity, I like entered a community of like Christian women where like we actually got to talk about things like that and how like our faith applies to our life when we, I don't know, just like try and like live life, because our bodies have desires and like we all want affirmation and physical affection and all that stuff. So when I came back to Trinity, one of the things I was like on fire for is like to talk about sex. So we had a women's sex night, and it was like super important to me that like we had people to represent like any sort of like experience. So there was someone who was married and was a virgin, and so like she saved herself for marriage. There was somebody who did struggle with like pornography, and then like part of my story is that like I have had sex already, and like I want to live a life that is pure for my husband, yet I still struggle, you know, because like I'm human. So that was another cool memory where we got to share our experiences and just to talk about it, because I think there's freedom when we speak about our fears and anxieties and our doubts and our questions, you know. And what other place to speak about things that you want to learn about than a school, you know, in a school that should be safe. Yeah, another good memory. Another great memory that I had as a resident director, probably my rad team. So like a rad team, so I'm a resident director, and I had a team of 5 RAs, resident assistants, who like live on campus in a dorm of like 12 to 15 other girls, and they like facilitate community, they try and handle conflict, they're just like student leaders. And then I also had a CF, which is a community facilitator, and her job was to like get volunteers of people who live in the building and like host events and stuff. So like it's a really cool job and a cool team, and it was surprising how much I fell in love with them, because they were sweet and they're precious, and they just like, I don't know, they were real and authentic. One of my favorite memories with them was in the spring. We went on a silent retreat, but before we like did all the silence and reflection part, the night before we played like this game called Cutthroat Mafia, and it is one of my favorite games to play. So everyone gets like a card, and if you're like the Queen of Hearts or something, you're like the killer, and part of the game is all the lights are off and you have to go like this to somebody, and then once you leave that person, they have to fall to the ground, and then us townspeople have to figure out like who the murderer is. Anywho, the funny part of this story is I'm awesome at that game. So I would never like die until like the very last person, but I would know everyone's dead, so then I would like run screaming. And like this one time, one of my girls like was coming after me, and I'm like yelling like dead body, but like no one's able to turn the lights on because everybody's dead. And then like she scares me, so I pee myself and I run to the bathroom, and then like I'm literally peeing on the toilet and she's trying to come at me, and I'm like, I'm peeing right now. Anywho, just like a lot of laughs. It was a good time. And I said that was the last one, but I have one more memory. Part of the year we have to like interview students who want to be in student leadership for the next year. And during this like 2-week process, I went to our chapel time, which is like from 11 to 11:30 every day. There's like worship and like a speaker and like a message or something. So I went to one, and it was like a worship one, and at the bottom, because it's in a gymnasium, at the bottom on the floor there's like students who are like there to pray for people. And you know, I'm solid, I'm good, but I always know it's like scary to be the first one to go down. So I thought, as like a staff member and just someone who's older, I was like, I don't mind walking down first. So I went to like these 2 students, and then I asked them like what I've been praying about, which is that as we like interview students and like choose who would be good candidates for the next year, that it would be representing like the body of our school, because Trinity is like 50% international students. So I think there's like way more diversity now than when I was a student. And as I was asking these 2 prayer students to like pray for like wisdom for myself, I started getting emotional, because I just realized how much I do want good representation, and that when we choose students who are diverse, it's not from like a tokenism sort of place, but an actual like just equality, you know? Like I just want diversity, because we can see skills in every culture and every person, and that to be a good leader, you don't have to be this typical extroverted or like sociable or like just like kind of like the typical leader, you know? because we're all leaders. You can be introverted, you could be, I don't know, you can be a little crazy or like different, and like that's okay. Because when we have leaders who are different, those who are different can see that they can be in leadership too, you know? So it's just, it's been a hard year. I try and, because I feel different. That's why I came back, you know? I wanted to represent the difference, because I still love Jesus. But I feel like, I don't know, I still like the party. Before I go to a staff year-end celebration, the last thing I will say is not a memory, but something that I've learned this year is, as I've been a leader in this school setting, I'm not perfect. I've messed up. I've made mistakes, okay? I've done things that I shouldn't have done, and like I've done things that I regret. I've done things that have hurt my heart and like sometimes other people, and I think there's a lot of pressure in like Christian communities or circles in positions of leadership that we have to be perfect, and that was like really frustrating and hard. And I think that's why I miss Vancouver so much, and like where I used to work, and living in the downtown east side is a place where people's imperfections you can't help but see and know that like they're not perfect. And in places like Langley and Trinity, there's such an image of like we have to be perfect to live like Jesus, and that's not true. So I've had many moments where I've had to remind myself that there's grace, and as much as I do have wisdom and experience in what I should be doing and what is good, I still make mistakes. And to have that same grace for my leaders, and to just like be honest and talk about it with them, because in a sermon from a pastor that I really love, to be honest is like a kiss on the lips. And so even though it might hurt sometimes, it's just good to say the truth. So yeah, that's something I learned, and something I will probably have to remind myself every day of my life for the rest of my life, is to have grace when I've let my expectations down or feel like I've messed up, because we're all growing. But I know who I want to be. I want to be like Jesus, and so I'll just keep looking to him. Yeah, that's it. Okay, I gotta go now.